Mr. Tareq Amin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, it's really an honor and a privilege for me to be with you on this beautiful island. I must admit, if I knew this was a beautiful island, I would have taken a holiday out of this week. Second, I really want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Malaysian government for inviting me to speak to you about the journey that Rakuten has taken to build something very fundamentally different from what you have seen in traditional telecommunication network. And I have asked their permission that I'm going to be a little bit opinionated today about an industry that is well overdue for transformation. But before I give a context to what we're going to talk about today, I must ask you, as we talk about 5G, why do we still have 3 billion people today without basic connectivity? Not even half G. We still have no connectivity for 3 billion people across the world. I have a very opinionated point of view about this message, and it have to do with the foundation and the architecture of how we build telecom networks. So allow me today to give you an overview of what Rakuten has been busy doing in Japan and what we think the future of future networks and how they should be engineered, built, and operated. So of course, networks for me is a very, very personal topic. I want to take just 5 minutes to tell you why I love this. I'm one of those people that I always knew in my life what I wanted to do. I always knew that the minute I finish my university studies in the US, I'll be in telecommunication. I did not know even the term cellular, what it meant that day, but I know that I like connectivity because I believe connectivity is going to empower us to be far more connected and far more digitized than what we are today. In fact, one thing that inspired me about this forum is the hashtag that the forum has for talking about why we're all here. It's progressing humanity. It's a very, very good thing. I had the privilege in my life and in my career to build many networks across different continents and geographies, 13 cities in the US, going to India, moving to Japan, because I really love this topic and I think it's a fundamentally social topic that I think it's important beyond technology. So here is my honest opinion. I always believed telecommunication is a very stagnant industry. Despite the elegance of what we talk about as technology migrate from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 and tomorrow 6. Today, I want to give you some preview to why we believe technology has been stagnant on how we evolve, how we deploy, how we operate, and why does it take billions of US dollars to build networks, such as the existing or upcoming 5G networks across the universe. So the fact of the matter, if you put yourself in the lenses of an operation or an engineering or an architecture person in a telecom operator, and you tell them, please go deploy 5G. By the way, not also in Malaysia, but US, certain extent, Korea, and other markets. The complexity of deployment of 5G is because every time when we go and adopt a new technology from 1 to 2 to 3, the technology evolution requires what I call forklift. You take old boxes, old hardware, and you have to replace them with new boxes and new hardware. And what I was inspired yesterday with Prime Minister's speech, when he talked about technology companies, you notice he mentioned Amazon, he mentioned Google, he mentioned Facebook, he mentioned Huawei, but he will never, in my opinion, say, here is the biggest, most successful telecom company in the world in terms of internet innovation. The fact of the matter is, as cloud companies have already evolved the network workloads in the cloud, and as we hear about the advantages and the cost efficiency in the cloud, the truth is there is not a single mobile operator worldwide today that could claim that they have moved every workload in the cloud. And if you really want to know the reasons behind that, it's very simple. Yes, I understand that connectivity is complex, but number one reason is mentality and mindset. Please don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take risk. That's what life is built about. If we don't take risk, how we progress? So number one issue that I feel is about risk-taking. If you don't take risk, how do you create new things? If Steve Jobs did not take a risk on creating the first iPhone, would we ever think that LTE and 3G and others would come about? So this is the picture today that exists till today. If you want to deploy 5G, more boxes, more boxes, more boxes. Well, then where is the new software personality of these networks? Well, if you go into a Facebook, and I'm going to tell you a story I had about meeting lots of the engineers in Facebook, they don't deal with this issue called hardware and proprietary hardware. Nobody could tell them this is not possible for you to move all your workload, by the way, including messaging, which is real-time communication services, voice, video, messaging, that they offer on the cloud today. But they've been living this for 10 years. And you could see from their shareholding and their earning reports and their EBITDA, they're doing really, really well. So they must be doing something right on technology. So this picture to me is how many people said, Tareq, don't show this picture because maybe it's not a true representation. Well, the fact of the matter, I chose to put this picture of my analogy. And the analogy is maybe a story I will tell you. I mean, in the United States, there is a toy company called Toys R Us, 45 years in business, that filed for bankruptcy in December of last year because they stopped innovating. And Amazon ate their business by moving to cloud and moving to retail. So this is the story of what I believe that needs to happen in telecom. The story when in June of 2018 we started, we said we're not going to build in Japan a telco network the same way it's been built for the last 30 years. What we said to the public, to the government, and it's a massive responsibility, we are going to take a step about building the world first end-to-end cloud-native network. And end-to-end is a very important point because I don't look at the story is just about core transformation or move the core to a software-based platform, but look at it as the whole software stack, from the expensive things called radio access, to core, to operation subsystem, to billing subsystem, to digital experience subsystem. Everything must live on the cloud. Everything must live on commodity hardware. There is no proprietary hardware in Rakuten. So I put this slide not to give you a marketing overview about Rakuten, but I put this slide just to explain to you maybe the reasons we were able to do this idea. Firstly, Rakuten is not a telecommunication company. We don't really not into core communication. Rakuten has 70+ group operating internet-facing platforms, from banking to e-commerce to fintech, massive branding and activities around sports. The core of the company is about the skill sets that you need for tomorrow's world. Tomorrow's world is about software. Tomorrow's world is about IT. Tomorrow's oil is the data that comes from all these platforms. And I felt that's the primary reason. I'll be very honest with you. I was very, very happy in India. But what I thought Rakuten could give me is access to this ecosystem, which I think what the future will be built upon. So I went publicly and talked to our board. I said, here is the dream I had. And this is a dream you cannot buy today. Of course, we could talk about it, but you cannot buy at the time when we started this. It was a whiteboard session to say, we will build a network that's completely virtualized, completely automated, and rather than hardware, which is the picture of the lady I showed you before, now the network is all about software personality and software centricity. And my goodness, if you see the advantage when you have a software networks, what an amazing view. I really invite you to come and see what happens today in our operations in Japan. Come and see the team. Maybe you will be very surprised to know how small the organization is because of those factors and those tenets of how we started the organization. The entire software stack, I went with my team, I said, here's my dream. We need to start from the most expensive thing. And you have no idea how much I got criticized for this. I've been told since June of last year that I'm crazy, it will not work, it will fail. And it's always the skepticism, why it cannot be, rather than being positive and saying, we as human beings are capable. Let's go fix this problem. Radio network is too expensive. 5G, as it's imagined today, is uneconomical. There is a different path and there is a different way if you have a will. So we wanted to virtualize the radio access, and I'm going to explain briefly why that was very important. This is where billions of US dollars get spent. Believe me, all this other stuff that happens in the industry, when they say, well, I want to virtualize my core, you should always ask, what's the impact of CapEx and OpEx in relationship to your overall spending that you do in a telecom operator? So radio was very important. The second thing, it is really sad these days when I look at 5G. Do you know what is the #1 most popular application of 5G? Speed test. Seriously, speed test. Well, that's not 5G in my opinion. Well, if you want to get a gigabit per second, come and see with carrier aggregation. LTE gives you gives you gigabit per second throughputs. To get the architecture of 5G correct, you have to deploy what is called the edge data centers. Now, whether you make a superhighway very, very large, and there is a bottleneck, and the bottleneck is where content is, we have built today in Japan larger than what Amazon have built globally on edge data centers. We have over 280 edge data centers built. Now imagine when the content is only 30 kilometers away from you, what that means in something more relevant, in my opinion, than speed, latency. Today, we're not understanding the importance of latency. We're always thinking that throughput is equal a better thing, but the reality is I think latency is a far more important metric that we should look at. So while everybody goes into social media, I'm laughing at this. They just advertise, I have achieved 1.2 gigabits per second, I have launched 5G, great job. But why they don't show the latency number, by the way? Because in some countries today, I look at their latency numbers, it is as bad as what I see today on 3G networks. Well, that's not really the merits of what 5G architecture should look like. So we deployed large edge data centers. We have central data centers controlling our control plane workloads, one horizontal cloud managing everything, and on top of this cloud is the applications. So all of this is now completely software and very driven in the system. The other parts that I think is interesting, I met with many government officials, and we're talking about security. Security is a very, very critical part. I argued, I said, I think our network is more secure because this is the only network that I know in which every interface is open, including the interface that we've been always told, no, you cannot touch this because it's too complex, meaning the radio. We have a completely open RAN architecture in which I have full flexibility to apply security certificates at every level of interface, a way that has never happened in this industry. So I think security was ingrained in how we thought about this entire platform. Now, interestingly enough, when I talked about the radio, the first eNode B that we have built, here is the merits in order to cut cost on the economics. You know, in India, I learned quickly that the little things do matter because the average revenue per user was sub $1 US. And every cent you save is a cent you should always save. So my first approach was, can I simplify deployment such that you could do an entire macro base station deployment in 30 minutes? And the way to do this imagine this is not LTE, this is not 5G, this is not massive MIMO, this is still LTE. So I took a very simple approach. I said, I want to remove this jumpers, connectors, and honestly, in Rakuten original budget, these simple things as jumpers and connectors has a cost structure of almost 80 million across Japan. So that's good. Okay, we saved 80 million. And then the second thing, can the installation becomes plug and play? So we take the transmitter. There's a video in here. Can we play it? Okay. So let me explain to you now the entire architecture. And this is basically quick time-lapse video. Totality of installation was about 30 minutes. I drove around in Malaysia and saw your cell sites, how you build them. And I wanted to take pictures to bring it here just to give you this analogy. The entire totality of the macro base station of Rakuten is what you see in front of you. My vision was make LTE equals to Wi-Fi. Well, in Wi-Fi, we lived a cost structure that is unbelievable. We enjoy it across all of our devices, but we always said licensed radio cannot be like Wi-Fi because it's too complex. So what what we decided to do is make sure that when we install this base station, there is nothing at all as far as electronics. So just think about this. If there's nothing to maintain, why do you need field operations as such? So rather than investing into field operations and technicians, I invest in software developers to build automation required for this. So now every eNodeB across Japan is deployed in this architecture. Every macro base station has been fiberized, because the truth is, for 5G, without fiber, 5G will not live to its promise. So I bring fiber, and the entire macro base station is configured with plug and play in exactly 8.5 minutes. My previous job, this used to take 2 full days to activate one eNodeB. So that had a huge cost impact. By the way, also, when you think about it, construction is about time. What happens if I reduce time? That means also CapEx is substantially improved. So we learned a lot, and we wanted to be more adventurous. So this is the entire billions of dollars now that's been told you cannot do. We've been told that this is impossible, that only if you are from large OEMs, we are the only people that know how to do this stuff. I said, okay, well, you bring value. I have huge respect for the OEMs, but I also want them to evolve. I want them to evolve by really understanding the importance of Open RAN. I think this is vital, fundamental. If you want to control cost structure, my opinion, this Open RAN is no longer a discussion, this is a reality. So that while the industry was talking about O-RAN, we decided 18 months ago that we're going to push very hard to adopt this. So first generation product, this transmitter and the antenna, we convinced Nokia board that you will sell me this remote radio head, but completely open without software. Second product is a complete Rakuten innovation. So this is in 1.7 spectrum in LTE. So we took even the second product, and if you notice attention to detail, we knew that 2 brackets on an antenna take more time, so the second generation product, single bracket, reduce more time. And I think in 5G, the story gets really, really interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't be afraid of millimeter wave spectrum. It is an awesome spectrum if you know how to apply it and which conditions to apply it in. So in Japan, if you look at millimeter wave, today really, the leading supplier today from a chipset point of view on mobile terminals is Qualcomm. I met with them. I said, to me, I want to take the chipset inside your device, and I think we could actually use it as a base station chipset. And that product that you see for 5G 28 gigahertz, that product delivers 9.6 gigabits per second wirelessly. It's a massive MIMO product with 120 array elements, and it is cheaper than outdoor Wi-Fi. Now that to me is 5G. That is what you need to think about. And I repeat again, cheaper than outdoor Wi-Fi, a full base station with distributed unit integrated into the box. And then on Japan quality, I also understood when I moved to Japan, they basically, the expectation of quality was much, much higher, even my previous roles in the United States or India. And so when we built this product, I also was not happy about the cost structure for C-band 32T, 32R application. Together in partnership with Intel, with NEC, we have built a platform that is almost 60% cheaper than what you see today in the current marketplace. And these will be in full production in March this year. And Tareq, which is the equivalent of FCC in the US, have approved now our 3.7 gigahertz for Japan. That is how you make the platforms to be cheaper. In fact, I believe our 5G infrastructure cost is cheaper than what you see on some of the 2G technology costs today. That's very fundamentally different. Now, data centers. Just think about this. When you go inside any of our data centers, the hardware types are the same, identical. They're just IT servers. And the entire telco network is built on only six hardware types. Again, previous role and the roles before, we had hundreds and hundreds of proprietary hardware types. So I invite you to come and see in Japan now, our data centers, I order the same supply chain, same hardware, and the cost structure is utterly remarkable. So data centers have been simplified. So all in all, what have we observed? So what's the reality? Great. What is this end-to-end cloud native has been achieved? On radio access, conservatively, we have achieved 30% reduction on capital expenditure. But I think the OpEx and the operational expenditure will be far better than even 40% because of automation. On data center and edge data, we now have achieved what we call near zero latency architecture. Near zero latency, to my knowledge, makes us very unique on how we push content closer to the user. So if you want to do smart cities, if you want IoT to be successful, if you want smart autonomous cars to be successful, the whole world has been talking about edge data centers. So we've far exceeded now expectation on what we have seen in the results. And then automation, automation, automation. So this journey in automation, the only way I think we have achieved this is about skills, and hiring the right skills became very important. We learned quickly that in order for us to run, manage, operate this network, that we need a very different level of thinking. We're spending so much energy in the software components of this network than we have ever done in hardware. We want to abstract this complexity of hardware from network and deliver on an efficiency the likes of none in telecommunication. So I think a new future is about to be created. I'm giving you today an option. I'm not telling you this is the only option. I'm giving you an option because today, most of you, especially if you are in the telecommunication business, you've been told that you have no options. You've been told that this is the only way you need to follow. If you open your mind a little bit and you apply knowledge, because we are really forgetting the importance of knowledge in the industry that we're in, then this is what you could create. As far as Rakuten is concerned, we are going to go global under Rakutan Mobile platform. And what we're building is an app store for telco operators. We are going to not only look at virtual network functions, that's interesting, but we are going to even look at containerization for all our workloads. And I'm focused on the complex one, radio, 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 because that's how you cut costs substantially. So I think lastly, I want to end with this. I will tell you, I have attended many, many forums, and I came here really for a reason. This is when we met the minister and his team in Japan, I was really impressed with their progressive thinking. And honestly, I met a lot of governments. So I loved the idea of what they were trying to create, which is a collaboration, the idea of infrastructure sharing. I think that's a really, really good thing. Remember the earlier statement I started with, telling you why 3 billion people on this earth don't even have 1G connectivity today? The truth, it's cost. It is cost, nothing else. We're always complaining that telco networks are too expensive to deploy. We think we might have an answer, but we're not the only people that are going to come with the answer. We need to create a very collaborative ecosystem that allow us to take some of these ideas and move it forward. We have risked our entire company. As I showed you earlier, we are not a small company, but we've risked it because I think we're going to do something good for society. It was not good for business in that context. It was good for society first. That was the motivation of Rakuten. It's good for Japanese society to see a reduction and an improvement on how you consume data. We want everybody to be unlimited and really remove the shackles from your hands so you could think bigger. Now, imagine that this is all my talk to you is about foundation. When you build skyscrapers, if the foundation is not solid, you know what's going to happen to these skyscrapers. Today, what most people are doing, they're changing the windows, they're changing a little bit of the aesthetics on the outside, but nobody is looking at the underlying foundation. 5G is the only technology, honestly, and I've been in this industry for a very long time. The only time I got super excited is about 5G. But 5G also must be done right. It's a massive economic enabler. It's a huge opportunity. We talk about it in every essence. But I also will tell you a secret. Nobody yet clearly knows the use cases because still undiscovered. The analogy of this is when iPhone came about, in my opinion, that was the start or the beginning of the revolution on data. And then many of the apps that we live and we cannot live with today have happened because now we created a very beautiful ecosystem for app developers to come in and start thinking about the possibility of what could happen when we deliver on quality. So I think in the 5G world, I want to tell you maybe my simple view, this is my view, about why you should be excited about 5G. So of course, many of you have seen this, and you've seen it from 3GPP, maybe industry forums. But here's the truth about 5G that excites me personally. In the game of 3G and LTE, when you look at your phone speeds application, it is a game of averages. I'm getting an average of 2, maybe sometimes I go and advertise marketing 1 gigabit per second, but what does the consumer see on his device? It's always the average. Now in 5G, we have an opportunity to do something called bit rate guarantee. Bit rate guarantee is something unique. That is something exciting to say, I could guarantee you anywhere you go, depending on your design and planning, 70 megabits per second. Now, when you say guarantee, no matter what, worst case scenario, 70 megabits per second, I would say this is amazing. If you could go anywhere, in any geography, and by the way, the geography should not be only urban, suburban. I think now it's time to think about the country as a whole, 100%. Anywhere and everywhere you go, what happens if everybody's connected with such amazing broadband capability? I think it changes a society. So yesterday I heard some numbers about opportunities for the verticals. And I think I put the slide, by the way, before I saw also the slide that was presented from the Prime Minister, about opportunities for Malaysia and the sectors that you're thinking about. I commend you, sir. I commend you what you're thinking, very progressive thinking. You are thinking into the right direction. Now it's just an opportunity to get this entire, not just Malaysia, but this region as a whole, to start thinking differently. Because when we think about the potential for 5G and its impact on transformation and industry, it's of course remarkable. But my argument has been, but please focus on foundation first. Lay down the foundation so telecom companies could be profitable as they evolve from 4G to 5G, because I know their struggles today. I know it very well. And I met actually last year almost 100 plus mobile operators that came to Japan. Some of them obviously did not think that this is a scalable model, and then I invited them in so we could talk, we could debate, we could discuss, because I'm presenting just a point of view. I said, if you want to be successful to capture, the truth is the fight around 5G globally is a $1.5 trillion US opportunity. So it's very massive. And it's massive because for the first time ever, it's not about me connecting to you. It is a technology that definitely gonna, for a change, enable the massive device connectivity. Device-to-device communication, we always talked about it, but I think 5G is gonna make that a reality because the technology has the merit to scale, has the capacity, but I think fundamentally the foundation. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this have given you glimpses of what we've been doing in Japan. Our network today has been soft launch for some commercial customer. April 1st, we go grand launch. And I think this is where I end my message to you. I am really, really optimistic that we have hope for the future. Back to this progressing humanity, it's an amazing tagline. Because at the end of the day, I think technology should be built to make all of our lives better, and not just about people that live in the urban areas. I think we need to think about everybody and everybody that lives anywhere. So this is just a glimpse, hopefully, what's gonna come. A lot more from us in Mobile World Congress. Thank you again for extending the invite to us. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tareq Amin. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tareq Amin is a well-renowned speaker and is known all over the world as a prominent futurist with his mind-blowing vision. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to take a quick break and we will resume with the rest of the sessions at 3:15 p.m. On behalf of the organizers, we'd like to extend a very, very big thank you to our guest of honor, the Honorable Minister of Communications and Multimedia, Yang Muhammad Tuan Gobind Singh Dio, for gracing us with your presence here today. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you right back here at 3:15 p.m. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, announcing the departure of the Minister of Communications and Multimedia, Malaysia.